Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, listener. Mini episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's playing a weird GBA game with me tonight?
This is Blair Farrell from comicbookvideogames.com, and normally I'd try to have something clever, but I really couldn't think of anything for this short-ass GBA game.
So we are here to talk about a game that I only know about because of Rogue's Sassy Walk. X-Men Reign of Apocalypse, developed by Digital Eclipse, published by Activision, came out in 2001 for the Game Boy Advance. So if you're wondering why I want to do this, because I had saw you were streaming this on Twitch, or you posted on Twitter something you were going to be playing this game, and I'm like, oh, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, me and another guy had talked about doing this, but then we just never got around to it, and then we haven't recorded again since then. And this is one of those games that I meant to do, but then didn't, and it's always been on my list that I should do it. So when you tweeted it, I was like, well, here's the perfect example to finally play this damn game and talk about it. So it's,
yeah,
so
and it was my
something.
Curse. It was my cursed streaming game, because the first night I was going to do it, I had scheduled a later-ish stream, and then my fiance ended up having to get called back into work. So I was like, I don't want to start streaming and then have to leave abruptly to go pick her up. And then I went to stream it last Monday, which for this recording time. And then I tested the cart, because I stream off of I tried to do original hardware, and I tried to stream off my Retron 5, only to find out that the sound doesn't work for this particular game on that machine.
Oh, so it wasn't just me, because when I played this on the Steam Deck, I had no sound, no music, nothing.
Yeah, I played it in the Retron, and then there was forums from 2015 or 16. And someone said, I put this in, and there's no music, there's no sound. And they said, I think the reply back was, it's the original cart. And they said, yes. And I think I saw a bunch of forums and things about the same thing with the emulated ROMs. There was an issue with the sound wasn't coming through.
Oh, okay. I was curious because I saw that. I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Normally, I don't think I was missing much. So, but I was just confused.
I played with my headphones on. As when we announced we were going to do this, I played on a DS Lite on my breaks at work, which took me 2 days to get through it or so. And the music, it drags on, and the sound effects, it's the same death scream for everything, regardless if it's a sentinel or a person.
Okay, that's stupid and annoying.
Well, I'm assuming they weren't given a lot of money to make this.
Oh, God, no. This is also the time when, Activision just was making Marvel games.
And in particular, X-Men games, as I was, thinking about this era. So, especially the cast of playable characters. As X-Men came out in 2000, and you had Mutant Academy 1, which came out in the summer of 2000 around the movie. And then there was a Wolverine game for Game Boy Color. There was a X-Men Mutant Wars game for Game Boy Color. That came out in 2000. And then there was X-Men Mutant Academy 2, which came out in 2001, around the same time as this. This wasn't shortly after the launch of the GBA. The launch was June, July. I think it was June in North America, and this was around September, October.
Okay, I could see this being a fun early Game Boy Advance game. If that's just all you had, I could see it.
It's not only that too, as I think about kind of when I heard about this game, and it was EGM was giving a lot of pages of Game Boy Advance coverage because it was a big deal at the time. And one of the previews they had screenshots was for this game. And in context, so the X-Men arcade game came out from Konami, and that was a formative game for me. It was literally my introduction to the X-Men. It never, ever came home. There was no home ports of it, until later on when it came to Xbox Live, and then it was subsequently delisted.
Yeah.
So I feel the kind of the idea of the project was to make a homage to that people can play anytime they wanted.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that makes sense. But this is also doing it with, no budget. I mean, Activision, I think, is known for not being the best company. But God, do I miss the Marvel license being everywhere. Like, even though this is a bad game, like, God, I miss the Marvel license just being there. Like, because now it's like, you get a Marvel game, it's like, wow, you're a lucky duck guy. And back then it was like, here you go. You want some Marvel? We got some Marvel. We put Marvel in your Marvel. The dumb, like, it was just everywhere. And I kind of miss that.
Yeah, I mean, it is to an extent because you think about, like, the Marvel games. Right now we're getting quality over quantity. So we're getting about one a year. I don't think there's one for this year. As we had Marvel Spider-Man 2, and then before that you had Midnight Suns, and before that you had Guardians of the Galaxy, and to a lesser extent, the Avengers and Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales. And even we're recording this on a Sunday, and this past Friday I watched Blade because I bought the 4K Blu-ray, and I was sitting down and I thought, man, this should make a new Blade game. And then I was like, oh wait, they are making a new Blade game.
I do miss movie tie-in games. I know that's dead and gone, but there are times I still think about that. I'm like, man, I wish that wouldn't have died sometimes. Like, I miss low-budget movie games.
And I think that's part of the conversation of this is, like, X-Men 97, as of this recording, is like 8 episodes in, and every week the conversation is, this show is terrific.
Yeah.
Why aren't there, like, tie-in games, for example? Like, re-release the Marvel vs. Capcom games, put out the X-Men Mutant Apocalypse game, X-Men Legends, even, like, Shredder's Revenge came out, and every day I wonder where the Marvel equivalent is to a Shredder's Revenge, or a DC version. Like, where's the Justice League version? Where's the X-Men version? That's that concept applied to one of those big licenses. And I think because it's a Disney and Warner Brothers, I guess small is not enough, but I think small is what everyone needs right now.
It's, if we can't make a big shitload of money, why should we even waste the effort to make any money type of thing when it comes to the people in charge. And I don't think Disney likes video games that much either. They just don't care.
They do and they don't, because I think of the episode of Rick and Morty where he opens a shop to basically scientifically remove curses. And then Rick gets really successful, and then people start asking him for insurance and money and taxes, and he's like, okay, I'm bored now, and he just, like, takes the gas and lights it on fire. Like, that's how Disney is about video games. Like, they get super passionate about video games, and they say, we're going to invest in this, and we're going to start Disney Infinity, and we're going to make this weird Turok reboot and do, I think, Split Seconds was the racing game. And they buy these studios, and they build them up, but then they're not immediate overnight hits, and then they're just like, we don't care anymore, we're making phone games. And then they're licensing to all these partners, which is their model now, where it's like, we license Star Wars to this place, and they take all the risk and we get the money. But now they're talking about really getting into video games again. And it's like, it's a cyclical conversation where they want the money, but they don't want to invest the time it takes to make it. It's strange.
Yeah, part of it's greed, as always, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like, well, video games are at that point now where they're just too expensive, and you need to find, like, but yeah, port shit. Like, I mean, I don't want this really ported to other consoles, because it's sad this game is locked to the GBA and lost to time, but I mean, I didn't play this on the GBA, so, like, it's not completely lost to time, people, but
it's a nice little history note, because I think about when I saw that preview in EGM, and it was just like a screenshot, and they said, oh, there's like a beat 'em up coming that's X-Men related. And it got me a little bit excited, because the GBA, when it came out, was, here's a portable Super Nintendo. We're getting like Circle the Moon and F-Zero and kind of all these revivals. And then a couple of months later, the review came out in EGM, and the reviewer gave it a 3 out of 10.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. It's just that it's boring.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like a 13-stage level game, about, 1.5 hours?
I wouldn't even say that. It's like 45 minutes that feels like 5 hours.
You are not wrong.
It's very slow. Like, and even, I would go through levels, and it's because I know Final Fight came out on the GBA at the same time. It was Final Fight 1 ONE. And I think that had a bunch of enemies on screen, but I felt like when I was playing this, like I would get to the edge of the screen and like the go icon wouldn't come up, and it just felt like you were waiting for enemies to come on screen.
You were a lot. I mean, this game could have a few enemies on screen. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw over 5 enemies on a screen at a time, but a lot of them, a lot of this game wasn't even you moving. It was like you'd come to a zone, and then we'll put a bunch of enemies at you, then we'll put another wave of enemies at you, then we'll eventually let you move on. And a lot of times the enemies are just off screen and you can't see them. I know one of the complaints I was hearing about this game is that it's difficult. And I played with save states quite often, so it wasn't that difficult to me, but that's only because I was cheating.
I didn't even think it was that difficult. Like, I put the continues up to 9, but I think I used 2.
Okay.
Because I think there was one point, because I show up to my job early and then I kind of read for a little bit or I play a game. And I got to the level where Psylocke is, and then I died and I had to start to level over again. And then when I started to level over again, my cart froze. So I had to restart the game and I had 1 life. Well, I had 2 lives. I had a 1 and a 0. So I just like let the enemies kill me and restart with fresh lives. I did not want to go through that level again.
Uh-huh.
But I think we kind of have the same strategy because when you beat a level, you can add 2 points to 3 different tiers that kind of give it some depth more than walking left to right punching people. So you can level up your mutant power, your attack, or your health, and I just did attack and health. So
Same.
Towards the end, like I was kind of mowing down enemies with little to no like problem.
And it was kind of nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think I picked the wrong character. Because, okay, when I was first introduced to this game, a friend of mine, he sent me a video of the way Rogue walking animation. And look it up, people. Like, it is worth looking up because it is just like she has her hand on her hip and she just is like just big sways with her feet. And it's just like, it's just odd that that's what you went with for Rogue, that whoever developed this. And
well, that's a thing. This was developed by Digital Eclipse, who now are one of the, I would say, best working developers in the industry right now. Like, they're the people responsible for the Mega Man collection and the Street Fighter Anniversary collection and the Cowabunga collection, the most recent Gold series, like the Making and Karateka,
great company.
50. Yeah. But
I'm not saying more like that. I'm wondering, like, this was something where they did something like, okay, we're gonna have this, and then they were gonna do more. And then Activision or somebody's like, no, go with that. We don't, we're cheap. We don't want to spend more money. Get this game done.
Yeah, I think the most effort was put into the character animations. Like, Rogue is basically hands on hip. These boots are made for walk and strut. I use Storm mostly because, well, she looks really cool because she's kind of floating, and like the animation of the characters is really cool. As you can kind of see like the wind going under her feet, and like her costume is kind of rustling as she moves. But the thing about a beat 'em up, especially one that doesn't have any type of force feedback, is that the impact of your punches and attacks are made by sound, and Storm is the only character that really has that. I think it's like because it's part of the wind that she's using.
Oh, okay.
Because everyone else just feels really soft.
I mean, I played through the game as Rogue, and like a couple things I noticed with Rogue because after I beat the game, I then tested the other 3 characters, and like with Rogue, like because you had I don't think I would have figured this out without you telling me. Is that if you do a quarter circle punch, you then do like a mutant power, and for Rogue, she dashes forward, which is nice, but the problem is she's now sometimes in enemy territory, and if you missed, it might not end well.
Yeah, I was using Storm, and sometimes like a tornado would go out, and I was like, how did I do that? And then I tried that, because I never had the manual. I just, I have a loose cart that I got when I was kind of building my website. And that's a thing about the awkward control setup, because you have 2 attacks, like one I guess is light and the other is heavy. But the other is not even a heavy attack, it's like crowd control, and it's useless.
Are you talking about like because you had the A attack?
Because the R button jumps, and A is like your punch, and B kind of, at least with Storm, I guess it's like a crowd control to push people away.
That's better. Rogue just she does like a slow headbutt that usually, if I did it, got me hit instead. So I usually didn't ever pull it off.
Yeah, and it's like to jump, you have to hit the R button, which is awkward.
Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what their mutant power is considered, because one of the three things you can level up is mutant power, and the only two mutant abilities you have is quarter circle, punch, and then you also have where you press A and B together, but you give up your own. For some reason, you give up your own health to do like a circle attack to kind of get people off you.
Well, I mean, I actually didn't even know about that, to be honest. I'm assuming that's a thing, because I mean, that's a thing in all of these, like Final Fight, you hold the two buttons together, Mike Hagar will do like the spinning pile driver, and like Turtles in Time, you'll like fly at them and lose health.
But if like you're this is an X-Men game, like they could have given you like some kind of thing to refill your mutant power or something like that, so and then you use your mutant power and you're not like hurting yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, you always have to put a limit on it somewhere, because like I streamed like Mutant Apocalypse on like Monday night. It was like you can put like Gambit's card throw or Cyclops' optic blast on a button, but then the game is too easy.
I would have just rather had some kind of bar that I can fill up by hurting enemies, and then when I need it, I can just hold up that charge and then use it on like a boss fight or something.
And you do kind of have something like that. Like you have a meter that you can fill up by attacking people, and sometimes power-ups will come. And when it's filled up, you hit L, and then like Storm kind of like hits the lightning around, and I think Cyclops, you didn't know about that?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there's like a blue meter on your health, and it fills up, and you hit the L trigger. And like there's a kind of a attack. I guess that's what levels up your mutant power. I never really looked into it. I perhaps should have done some research coming into this.
You know what? You probably wouldn't find a whole lot on this game, because I don't think there's much on this game. But I didn't know that. No, I never pressed L. I pressed every. That's funny. Yeah, I never knew that. I think we both learned something new.
I'm tangled up in one now.
I'll talk. A couple things, like, with this game had 4 playable characters: Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, and Rogue. I did play as all 4 for, like, well, the other 3 just for, like, 2 minutes, just to play, see how they felt, see their animations. I mean, I like the team, and hey, I gotta say, at least this is a Storm where you can play Storm in a game. She's not just swimming in underwater sections the whole time, so that was nice.
Yeah.
I still need to beat that game one day. That game is... Yeah, never beat it as a kid and never beat it as an adult, and I just want to a save state just to say I did it once in my life.
I did it once without save states. It was a summer of literally coming home every night from work and practicing. And for those unfamiliar, we're talking about Spider-Man, the X-Men, Arcane's Revenge. It's funny because, you know, why I kind of went silent for a second is that I was talking about not doing research. I actually own the Brady Game strategy guide for this game. Because it was a dual strategy guide for this and Spider-Man's Mysterio's Menace.
I need to okay, that's another... Oh, damn it, you just opened a can of worms that you didn't realize. That game is another game that was mentioned to do on this show back in the first, 4 months of this show, but then one of the co-hosts that recommended it ended up leaving, and I've never done it, and now you just opened up a core memory unlock that, yeah.
Yeah. So according to this, the mutant power, because you have 3 things you can power up after every level, being your strength, your vitality, your mutant power, and the mutant power is your ability to fill up the meter faster.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we learned something new, and maybe I would have enjoyed the game more had I known that was a thing.
Had you had the Brady Game strategy guide?
I mean, I have internet. I probably have access.
Yeah, I'm assuming the game facts for this is pretty basic, where it's like...
Oh, God, yes. The walkthrough I found was really fucking basic. I mean, again, there's not a whole lot to this. The whole idea, the story is also stupid, but it's a Game Boy Advance game. Like, they have the story in there, like, you'll get little snippets of the characters talking. I guess it's supposed to be that they teleported for some reason. They're in a different dimension where Apocalypse took over. I'm like, okay, it's going to be based on, like, Age of Apocalypse, but it's not. It's just, but you're fighting the X-Men and different villains because they're all mind control. I don't know. But
well, the context is, I do appreciate the setup, and I have a whole X-Men book that I wrote, and I'm kind of going off notes that I did for that, like during the pandemic. Well, yeah, because they went to the Mojoverse, which is the he was on X-Men '97. The Mojo character kind of brings Jubilee into the video game world. So they're coming back from the Mojo world, and I guess something happens, and they're kind of sucked into an alternate universe where Apocalypse won. Because the first level is like the X Mansion. They all say like, "Man, we're home," but everything is destroyed, and that's something that I thought was interesting because you do fight villains, like traditional villains, like you fight Blob, Pyro, Magneto, of course, and eventually Apocalypse, but you also fight X-Men characters. And yeah, I thought it would have been cool instead of having just fighting Cable or Gambit or Beast, it would be like the Age of Apocalypse version or something, like some type of alternate take on them to show that they're a bad guy. But, I guess for Digital Eclipse, when they get this license and they have this skills with these sprite work, I guess what they were trying to do is just, we want to put in as many X-Men as we can and just have them in the traditional 90s look and make them look cool and have fun animating them. And we'll just hang this thing above it saying, well, it's an alternate version where they're the same, but everyone's bad.
And for the most part, they weren't that hard. Only one that really messed me up is when you fight Jean Grey. She was hard. Like, I don't know how I would have beat her without save states, because she just had a lot of attacks that would just, like, counter my inputs. So.
Yeah, that was the thing I find with this, because you're punching people and you're kind of in a combo, which I guess in this is just hitting the attack button, and then they can just break out of it and start hitting you.
Yes.
And then some of the X-Men characters also kind of have like the mutant power rage attack, and then everything kind of like slows down and like you kind of can't miss the hit. And that gets really annoying. I can't remember, it might have been Nightcrawler who had something like that, or perhaps Beast when I was fighting him.
I mean, there are a couple that are pretty bad that really that made me go like, okay, if I don't cheese this, I'm going to be in trouble. And I would cheese it, of course, when I could. I just remember Phoenix being really bad. I mean, it's cool that you do see a bunch of different places. You get to fight on a Blackbird. You get to go to the fight. You get to go to the Savage Land. You get to go to Paris, because nothing screams X-Men like Paris. But like you have different things, and I did appreciate those moments.
I did too, but I think my big problem with this game is that the sprite work on the X-Men is great and the character animation is great, but the environments feel like paintings. They don't feel like places. And the worst example of that is like the level you mentioned, because you're in the Blackbird and then you're getting attacked, and then the context is that, okay, we have to go on the roof of this jet and fight. But it's just a stationary stage. I guess the impression is that you're in the air and you're fighting enemies, but there's nothing to indicate any motion in the backgrounds. Like, I think of even like Double Dragon 2 on Nintendo, when you're in a helicopter, you're kind of getting like sucked out the door. Like, there's nothing, say, like pushing you back from the force, or there's no kind of like speed lines in the background to indicate movement. Like, it's fine for everything else that's kind of stationary, but that level in particular always stood out to me.
Okay. I also didn't realize, I couldn't tell the sprites. So other than this, the Sentinels do look cool in this. I like the Sentinels. They have that very the X-Men animated series original, look of them, or I guess 97 now. I liked that. But I know I recognize the Hellfire Club goons, but I didn't recognize the other ones that you're fighting, and I guess they're supposed to be something to do Omega weapons or something to do with the Weapon X program, is what the internet told me.
So in level 1, according to the strategy guide, people are Rangers, and they're armored followers of Apocalypse.
Okay.
That's all it says here. And then there's green guys, and those are Weapon Omega, who are associated with Alpha Flight. And yeah, then it's just the bosses. It's Phoenix, even though it's the 90s Jean Grey outfit.
Mm-hmm. Just a few strange choices, but I mean, it was fun fighting them. The costumes make sense to me for Wolverine, X-Men, and Storm, because Wolverine is the classic costume, yellow and blue one everyone knows. Cyclops, it's the costume that I don't feel people know as well. I do, because it was in the Pride of the X-Men cartoon. That's my first introduction to X-Men, is that in that game, and he's wearing the all blue outfit.
Yeah, I
And
think it
then
was the first Toy Biz X-Men action figure as well, and that's what he wore in the X-Men arcade game.
yeah.
I guess it's a lot easier to animate than if he had like the 90s outfit with hair that you have to deal with.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense, and I had no problem with that. But then Rogue's in an outfit I've never seen before, and it just confuses me because it's like, I mean, again, I have never read X-Men comics really. The only X-Men run I've ever read was God, what the fuck was it? It was really damn good. Uncanny X-Force, Volume 1. It's the only whole run of any X thing I've ever read. I had to think about what it was, but then I realized, yeah, it's on my wall. I have the first issue and the last issue on my wall because I just love that run. But that's with X-Men and Psylocke and Archangel, really fucking good run if you never read it. But like,
yeah, that's the Rick Remender one where they have like a kid, and I think it's like Apocalypse Reborn, and they can like kill
yes.
them. Yeah, I remember that.
They kill him, or they're supposed to. And then they have one that's with them. It's a really good show, actually.
Like Deadpool, I think, is the voice of Reason.
Yes, it's actually a really good run. I'm first introduced to Phantom X also, who I don't know who the fuck was before then and don't really know after, but he's in that run too, with the main characters of X-Force. And then I think Deathlock joins the team too eventually, which is very weird, but whatever. So, yeah, really good run. You should, but that's my only thing. So I don't recognize this Rogue costume. Like, I own a bunch of X-Men comics because I went through a phase where I was buying a lot of comics and I would just buy random issues with cool covers and first appearances. But, like, I've just never seen that Rogue costume. I don't know if it was from the comics or they just did something like that just because.
Same. It's a weird choice, and I've read a few, like, I've not read as much as X-Men comics as what I would like to. I feel like I have this general knowledge, and even, like, with the most recent episodes of X-Men 97, like, again, as of this recording, we're up to episode 8, were some of the reveals, and I was like, I think I know who that guy is, but I can't remember the name, and then I kind of had to look it up, and they're dropping these things like OZT everywhere, and I have a feeling that there's a bunch of people who were like, oh man, it's this, and I was like, I feel like I should be excited, but like my knowledge of X-Men is like very limited.
I'm in the same boat. I don't know enough about X-Men that I would like to, and I've tried to read Age of Apocalypse like 2 or 3 times, but I've never gotten very far. I just don't. Someday I want to read a bunch of X-Men because I try to read comic quite often, mostly for the show, but someday.
Speaking of Rogue, as I found, and I know again with my somewhat limited knowledge of X-Men, there's a mission where you have to find Forge. In this game, they're like, we have to find Forge to fix this portal to go home, or something to that effect. And they say, how do we find them? And they say, oh, there's a mini Cerebro unit on the Blackbird, and Rogue says that she's going to use it. And I was like, doesn't Cerebro need a psychic to use it? And how are you using it? Because you haven't stolen anyone's powers. It just felt like something they threw in, but I was like, but you still had to get approval for that. Like someone... Like, there was like probably T.Q. Jefferson or someone at the time probably would have said, like, that's not how the Cerebro works.
I mean, in 2001, isn't this Marvel wasn't doing great? So it's possible they were just, or no, they would start doing better because the movies are doing good at this point.
Well, X-Men was out, Blade was out, Blade 2 was on the way, Spider-Man was on the way, and they still had, like, people, I think in the 90s, there was a person named Dana Moorehead, and then I think it was T.Q. Jefferson, although they might have been in Activision. I'm not sure. Again, I'm throwing out names that mean nothing to anybody except for my weird brain.
Hey, there are people out there who probably know, who hopefully will listen to this, who know exactly what you're talking about. But
I know someone who was like probably friends with T.Q. Jefferson. So
I mean, hey, some people really like. I just feel like, I mean, I just didn't care as much as what I was thinking. Like, I mean, somebody just wasn't that concerned. That was approving thing. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it was like just something we can use as like a device that people understand. Like they know what Cerebro is. It was in the movie.
This isn't really a story heavy. I mean, this is just. I mean, all the stories just in the context of people talking with a panel of their picture talking, and you just read the text in between levels. Like it's a beat 'em up. They're like, nobody's gonna care. I mean, we care, but
yeah, it's like we got mixed up in a portal. We have to get home, and that involves moving from the left to right, punching bad guys, occasionally like riding an elevator and punching bad guys. Like fighting a mini boss, then fighting a main boss, and then moving on.
It was cool seeing a lot of the characters, seeing Psylocke, Sabretooth, Gambit. Like, I enjoyed seeing a lot of these different characters. I had the only one that was really, like, the sprite was very, very questionable when you fight Blob in the first level, and I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah, he's pretty. That was okay. Like they kind of really emphasized kind of like the I guess jelliness, for lack of a better word.
The Blob. That line
moves the Blob.
That line will forever live in my brain.
I mean, it's everywhere. Like for a lot of people, grow up with that machine. Like
yeah, me too.
On Twitter, I can't remember when. Everyone this week has been posting, well, what's your first X-Men issue? And I had something that I posted. Like, I think this was mine. It was an issue of the Executioner song. But my mom saved something I wrote in like grade 1 or 2 about. I wrote about my X-Men comic collection. The first sentence was, I found out about X-Men because of this giant arcade machine I saw. And like, you know, to go forward in time and tell that kid that for a quarter of your life, you're going to spend it writing about superhero games and talking about them on podcasts and streaming them, you know, you'd be like, can we get rich? I'm like, no, we don't. Like, when we're talking about superheroes, like, yeah, well, you're going to spend more money than you're ever going to make.
Hey, I get that. I run a podcast. I get that. But hey, it's part of the fun of it. It's part of knowing that your voice is being heard.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that was still a cute game. I mean, I was happy that, like, you don't realize the excitement I got when you posted about this. I was like, I finally have someone to talk about this with.
Oh, please. You know you always have someone to talk about these
I know,
things.
but I had forgotten this game. Like, I kind of forgot this game existed, too. When you posted it, it reminded me.
Yeah, I've been trying to ride that X-Men 97 bandwagon. It's not really working when I stream.
Oh, no, trust me, I get it. Like, I have tried stuff like that, too, and it doesn't work for me either, so I get it.
I think in the context of the era, this was a much bigger deal because, I mean, the Game Boy Advance, you know, I think it was that era where people had just gotten nostalgic for, say, the Super Nintendo. Like, because a lot of people, they would have bounced off of 2D into 3D when you had, like, the PlayStation, N64, Saturn, and then Dreamcast, PlayStation 2. But around this time, you were getting that sentiment of like, man, it's like Super Nintendo games are back, and we're playing these, and like, here's this X-Men game that's like that beat 'em up. But then, I mean, also you can play multiplayer, but then you need someone with a link cable and another copy of this game, which, you know, back then it's like, where are you going to find someone who also owns a copy of X-Men Reign of Apocalypse in your immediate proximity?
Probably not highly, I'm assuming, considering I didn't even know this game existed until my buddy had mentioned it, showed me that Rogue Walking, so yeah. Hey, but a cart's not that expensive. It's like about $25 on eBay. That's not bad. I mean, that's higher than I would ever pay.
For like, as I was at a game store the other day, and I guess it's the 3D era that's getting people excited because things like Web of Shadows on PlayStation 3 are up in the hundreds now, when before those things were like probably on 2 for $20 sales at GameStop. Because people were buying them and flipping them, and
just those make me so sad because like they don't exist anymore. I mean, I'm so happy I have a couple copies of some of those Spider-Man games for PS3 or 360 back when I got them dirt cheap. Like, because I haven't emulated 360 or PS3 yet. Really, I mean, it's out there. My PC is just not good enough to do it.
I'd say PS360 would probably be easier than PS3. I can see that being a bit of a...
It is, but neither one runs great for me on my hardware so far.
And who knows, it's like right now, like Microsoft owns Activision, who publish all these games, and I know they're starting, because they were doing backwards compatibility for the Xbox One and Series platform. I think they put the brakes on that, but now I think they're talking about doing more. And I'm not sure if that's about future-proofing the library that's there or if they're adding older titles. But I mean, they have to start, like, you know, now that they own Activision and things they now have access to, Like, they have to be thinking of, like, what can we put out now that we own this company? And I hope this is in that wheelhouse, but then I don't know, does Marvel own the exclusive rights to say Spider-Man? Like, can another company not put out a Spider-Man game now because that's a Sony thing?
From my understanding, again, this is just me reading stuff on the internet. Without really paying a whole lot of attention, I think Sony owns almost everything to Spider-Man besides the comics. I think
it's the merchandise too, because I know I was talking about that with someone, because it's a weird kind of thing about X-Men now where people are going back, and it was only a few years ago where Marvel was scorched earthing the mutants. They're like, you don't like Wolverine, you like Black Bolt. And it's like, no, we like Wolverine. It's like, we need Jean Grey. When you have Medusa, it's like, no, we want Jean Grey.
I love the story that came out that somewhere the guy that was in charge of Marvel was in the office throwing a fit because they didn't own X-Men because Fox did and they couldn't make a movie, and he was just like, get rid of the X-Men because of pettiness.
Yeah, I think it's like both merchandising and the movies, because when you think about, and I mean, I don't know anything particular, because say like when the Amazing Spider-Man movies were coming out, you were still seeing Marvel Legends versions of Spider-Man, and then there were still Spider-Man toys. I think Marvel probably still got a cut of Spider-Man toys.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're like, well, but if they didn't, you probably would have saw the same thing with Spider-Man.
My guess with the X-Men is that they were just so angry about it. Like, it was just stupid. Like, when they scrubbed the X-Men from everything, it was like, come on, guys, we don't want, like you said, we don't want the Inhumans. Like, and they were really, because I went through a phase, I think it was probably 2015 or so, where I was trying to read comics as they came out. I would end up there was a thing I could download online that had all the new comics that came out each week. And I would just read a bunch of comics and then, just move on, just to kind of like see what was going on in the Marvel. And I remember doing that, and there were a lot of Inhuman books. The Inhumans were everywhere around that time. And again, it's just because they were trying to scrub the X-Men, like you said. It was so stupid.
Yeah, and then it's weird because you had Miss Marvel, who came out of the Inhuman initiative, who was, probably one of the best things that came out of that, because everyone loved that character, and I love that character. Same. And then they put her in, the movie or the TV show, and then they put her in a movie. But there was no reference of the Inhumans, because then they have to say that TV show existed. And well, not even that, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also...
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets big into... From what I remember, I only watched season 1 and 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think. And then I stopped.
Well, at the end of season 2, like, Terrigen crystals break into the ocean, and then fish somehow ingest them. They're in the water, and then people are catching, like, tuna, and then people are becoming Inhumans because it's in the food supply. Okay. And then they kind of do the whole, the X-Men story where Inhumans are there and people are there, and it's like the mutant panic, only it's Inhuman panic, and there's groups who are like racist towards the Inhumans, and then some are bad, and they kept trying to do that. But like, we can call them mutants, it's the same thing but different.
Okay, I did watch some of season 3, then I fell off and never went back. But that was more of just my life, and watching a TV show is hard when you work second shift in retail, so.
For sure.
Never watched it. I mean, I know I could, but I don't care enough now.
Good show.
The way I used to watch it was torrenting. So
it got really good.
That's what I've heard. And then when it wasn't connected to the MCU anymore, I just kind of lost interest. But I mean, I would love to see X-Men collections come out and this turd be on there just because, like, that would make me happy, just to have a bunch of random X-Men games and to throw this thing on their Spider-Man games. I don't think it's ever going to happen, even with Microsoft owning Activision, just because I feel like to get the rights, Disney would want money that nobody's going to pay them, and it just ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for example, Marvel vs. Capcom, which I know you're a huge fan of, those games are kind of lost to time, and it sucks.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't think well, it is an issue with money, of course, but I think the issue is that it's not worth. I think it's the effort more than anything because they have to wrangle like lawyers and find out who owns what code, like what royalties go where, and they'll probably make some money. But when you think about like, I mean, I never read the Activision documents, but I think like Marvel got an unhealthy cut. Well, not unhealthy, but a pretty nice chunk of the money generated from the sales of that game. Where this, if they were say to release. Digital Eclipse puts out an X-Men collection that's Legends 1 and 2 and Mutant Academy. Like, I don't think the dollars are there to kind of make investors, make their pulse quicken enough.
To make it actually happen, yeah. No, I get that completely. It just always makes me sad because I would love to see so many games come back. Like, I know people were upset because, like, the Xbox 360 arcade store is going down soon. And there's, speaking of a game that Marvel, because I know you were playing it, Marvel Origins, God, what the hell? It's the X-Men Marvel superhero game fighters that are, I know you have, that were having some issues trying to stream.
Well, yeah, because it was an issue where, like, Xbox Live, I got it working after, because I have Konami's X-Men on my Xbox 360, but then I couldn't sign in to my Xbox Live for my Xbox as my authentication had to be updated or something, but I couldn't play a game that I bought.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's the world we live in, but as I always tell everybody, like, when people get upset when the Wii store's gone and the Wii U store's gone, people are like, man, they're lost. I'm like, no, they're not. Like, they're there. Like, I have found the entire Wii virtual console. Like, it all comes back eventually. Not legally, but it's there.
And I mean, that's why I kind of am dabbling into streaming these games because, like, I own them and I write about them and I talk about them, but it's not the same as people seeing them.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And, like, I streamed Maximum Carnage one night and I got to the final boss, and same thing, I did Mutant Apocalypse and I animated there, and just talking about them and the memory. And that's the thing now that X-Men 97 is kind of rekindled, like, an en masse love of the X-Men. Like, I don't think it's ever gone away, but it's big again. Like, it's probably Marvel Studios' best thing since Spider-Man No Way Home. Easily. And one of the best things they probably have ever done. But I know, for example, like, Walmart has a gaming account on Twitter for Canada, and it was the day that the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer came out. And they said, oh, yeah, don't forget about this excellent Deadpool game. And I replied, like, that you can't play because you don't sell it. Like, you don't sell it. The stores don't sell it. The only way to get this is to get a disc. When I was poking around on eBay the other day, and Deadpool for PS4, Xbox One is up to $50, $60. When Deadpool and Wolverine comes out, that's only going to go up.
And that stuff like that just makes me so sad that it just doesn't. Because I want to buy that Deadpool game. I own it. Like, I have a copy of it on 360. I have a copy on PS3. I might have a copy on PS4, actually. But, like, it bugs me that I can't buy it on. Because I would have, like, okay, I'll buy this on Steam, put it on my, on my Steam Deck at some point just to have it type of thing. But it doesn't exist anymore. And stuff like that just makes me so sad because it's like, like, you were able to re-release it at one point, but, the license expired and now it's done.
Yeah, and it's, as of this recording, there was a video that went up on Did You Know Gaming, produced by a person named Liam Robertson, who does amazing work, and it was Vicarious Visions, and they, at one point, were planning to make a 3D Donkey Kong game with Nintendo. And it kind of gets into that, but then it kind of gets into, like, the politics of Activision, where these pair of brothers, I think, formed a company called Vicarious Visions, who worked on a bunch of, like, Marvel licensed games, especially in the Game Boy Advance era. And they wanted to make all these original games within Activision, but then Activision said, we don't want to have a diverse portfolio anymore. We just want to have, like, 3 games going at a time. And they were like, they put out Tony Hawk 1 and 2, which sold millions, and then they wanted to do 3 and 4, and they're like, no, we don't care about this anymore. Like, and it's beyond frustrating.
It really is, and I guess that's just the world we live in, unfortunately. But I mean, that's why I do what I do. Like, one reason why I try to talk about old games like this. I mean, yes, it's not the same that people aren't seeing it, but at least by us talking about it, somebody will go, oh, and maybe they'll find, they'll find it and they can enjoy it and discover it. That's all I think about it.
Yeah, it's like even this game being of the era, like the cast, because you have 4 playable characters being Cyclops, Storm, Rogue, and Wolverine, of course. And like, why were those people picked? Like, well, in 2000, X-Men came out, and the team was Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine, Jean Grey, and like Rogue was kind of the character that got you into the universe. So it's like, we'll pick people from this. I don't think Jean Grey's powers translate that well to a brawler, although she did get into Marvel vs. Capcom, so who am I to say anything? But I think for a simplistic brawler, like it's, get Rogue as the punchy character.
No, I mean, I'm okay with Rogue being there. I just don't like the way she looks as much, and I just don't like the way she played, but yeah.
I really like to talk to people. I mean, I'm always open to talk to people who make these things to find out like where that choice came from. I'm sure there's like an outfit possibly that someone who's listening to this, who's an X-Men fan, said, oh, it's in issue blank or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I'm sure it is. Like, I'm sure they took it from somewhere, but it just wasn't what I know.
Even the art here in the strategy guide that I'm flicking through, like it just looks it doesn't look like officially licensed. It just looks like something that, say, the Digital Eclipse artist did. It's a very good picture, but it's just not something that I think about when I think of Rogue. Like it's still the yellow and green bodysuit, but it's not the like iconic one that we know with the jacket and everything.
No, and that's what I found weird, because like I know the one from the X-Men animated show, 97 show now, like that's the one I know, and it confuses me that that's not the one we got. So, but yeah, I mean the Jim Lee design, that's what I know.
That's what everyone knows.
Yeah. All right. Should we go on a shelf stacker box?
Sure.
We talked about this way longer than I expected, which I'm okay with. All right, and so I'll go first. I'm gonna put this on the stack. I had some fun. It's bad. It's not a good game. Actually, what am I saying? I'm going to put it in the box. I'm glad I played it, but I don't need to experience it again. But I'm so happy to finally have this crossed off my list of a game I have always wanted to play. So it's going in the box, but I'm glad that I finally got to play it. Thanks to you.
And I think I'm with you. Like I'm glad that I have it, and I'm glad that I finally got to play, because it was on my radar when it was new, and then I saw the EGM review where it got like a 3 out of 10. I think other outlets probably scored it a little bit higher. At that time, I was a teenager, didn't have a lot of money, so when it came to beat 'em up on a Game Boy Advance, I can either get this or Final Fight, so I'm going to get Final Fight, of course. Because I appreciate what they were going for, because I know it very much feels like we want to make a pared-down version of a Konami game using the resources that we have. And, it's not a classic like that is. I mean, few things are, because that just hit at the right time.
Yeah.
Too bad I couldn't stream it, but I think it wouldn't have been a very exciting stream anyways. And Mutant Apocalypse is really fun.
Yeah, that's a good game. And what about you, Shelf Stacker Box? I know you kind of said it, but you didn't say the rating.
Yeah, I said I was there with you.
Okay. And where can people find you at, Blair?
You can find me on various social media platforms at Blarcade. You can read my work on comicbookvideogames.com. I think I reviewed this back when X-Men Apocalypse came out in theaters, so you probably have similar opinions on that. You can follow the Comic Book Video Games Facebook page or like that. I post when new articles come up. And you can also now find me on Twitch, also at Blarcade. I haven't locked down a strict schedule yet. I normally do Mondays, which are the best night for me, but you'll see me streaming games like this, X-Men Apocalypse, Maximum Carnage, all mostly from original hardware using my vast collection of superhero games. With the summer coming up, we got some big anniversaries, like Spider-Man 2 is 20 years old this year. So is Catwoman, which I have on the original Xbox now. So maybe I'll start streaming those. And of course, Deadpool and Wolverine is out later this summer. So, got to get in some X-Men Origins Wolverine and Deadpool, even though I'm gonna need my PS5 for that, and my PS5's in a different room. And moving that thing, boy, that console is very clumsy. I tried to get a Xbox One version of Deadpool at a local game store that I was eyeing on forever, and then it was sold because it's so much easier to kind of move the old Series X to the PlayStation 5 with its weird fins and giant mass and all that stuff.
All right. And if you enjoyed this episode, over 600 other episodes of this podcast, you can find everything we do on Podbean. And you can search everything we do on Podbean. Type in Batman, type in Spider-Man. You will find episodes. Find the whole MCU saga. And if you want to support the show, you can vote in our Patreon poll. We have a link in the show notes. You get to support the show and help affect what happens. We have Discord. Please join for free. Talk with us. We're always happy to have new people join us. And want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Has Fear. You can follow her on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. And want to give a shout out to Bill Tucker at Gamer Looks at 40. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube audio only. I think that's everything I need to say, so we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.